Well, last summer, the Chicago area had an historic drought. Now the area is experiencing one of the wettest Aprils on record. What does that mean for your garden? On this Earth Day, we're pleased to welcome back Eliza Fournier of the Chicago Botanic Garden. Eliza, good to see you.
Nice to be here.
First of all, you know, April showers bring May flowers and all that business, but what about April monsoons? Can too much rain be a problem this early in the gardening season?
Absolutely. I know in my garden we planted a lot of seeds, and while a lot of rain and moisture is good for germination, it's also bad for teeny little seeds that can just wash away and end up somewhere you totally didn't intend them to be. And it also can be damaging to plant roots and plant health in general.
But there's a potential upside to all the rain in terms of where the water goes and some adjustments you might want to make. For example.
Absolutely. Now is not the time to be in denial about where water settles in your garden. It's a great time to really take stock of your yard.
Face reality.
Face reality. Because this is not going to stop. These big rains, these big downpours that we've been having are not going to end. So really taking stock, moving the things that are more tender and that don't like to have their feet wet out of those areas. And there's a lot of plants that don't mind having their feet wet, like serviceberry. You know, if you want a tree or a nice bigger, larger shrub, a serviceberry is a wonderful thing that also likes its feet wet.
So what you're saying is if you see a spot where water has gathered, maybe that's a tip to you that, you know what, let's get some water-loving plants in there.
Don't despair. It can be okay.
Give me some example, though, on the other side of common plants that people have that don't like the water, who, you know, time to move them maybe.
Yeah, roses are not going to be liking the wet.
I thought roses took a lot of water.
They do, but they don't like their feet wet. They like really wet. Anytime it says likes well-drained soils, peonies, roses, all of our really like garden showstoppers, those are not gonna like being in swampy areas. So move them to higher ground.
Okay, well, let's talk about what, you know, the weather has been cool. It's been sunny today, a little warmer. That was pleasant. But what should gardeners plant when the weather is still on the cool side?
There are a lot of great things that you can plant now on the ornamental side and on the edible side. So over here,
what do you got?
We have a beautiful display. We've got some, in the edibles, we've got lots of different lettuces, which are not only great to eat, but they're really beautiful too. There's lots of great different varieties. There's pansies, ranunculus, little violets that are all really beautiful to add color, which is so desperately needed right now.
What is a perennial that has been heaved? I'd never heard this term before.
Really?
No, I'd not heard it.
Well.
But I experienced it when I was cleaning up my garden. What does that mean?
Yeah, when we have these crazy freeze-thaw cycles in Chicago, and especially if you have new plants that you just planted maybe in the fall, they can actually get pushed out of the ground so that parts of their roots are now out of the ground. Yeah, just like it looks like the pot just went, like you didn't even plant it, but you did. So you just have to redig it and push it down again and maybe even get it a little deeper than you did before. It's going to be fine. Just tuck it back in.
You know, that's what happened. I had planted some sedum last fall, and it looked great and everything. And then I was cleaning up the garden, you know, cleaning up the stuff from the winter, and a couple of them had just come up.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I thought, well, I guess I should just put them in, and I did exactly what you said.
Good job.
Just dug a little deeper, put them in, patted them down, and I thought, oh well, they're okay.
They'll be fine.
You avoid artificially dyed mulches. What is wrong with artificially dyed mulches?
Well, on Earth Day, we're thinking about, you know, how do we treat our earth and the soil and the water and the air, and why put more dyes and chemicals into the ground when you don't need to, when there's perfectly great mulches that don't have those things added to them that are actually going to be healthier for your plants, the water that they drink and the soil that they live in.
Plus, you know what? They look so fake.
They look kind of fake.
Don't they look awful?
They look kind of fake. I try not to be too judgmental, but
they're not. It's not a good look for most gardens, that bright red.
No. It's not natural. It's not natural.
And speaking of mulching, when you talk about mulching, you talk about the volcano effect.
Right.
What is that, and why should people avoid it?
Like with a lot of things in gardening, people think, and life, people think more is better, right?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that when it comes to gardening.
Right. So with mulch too, or if you have a little bit more than you thought you would get, and people tend to mound it up onto the tree, the trunk of the tree like this. You actually don't want it to be touching the bark or the trunk of the tree at all.
And why is that?
You can actually start to get some decomposition, and the bark can actually start to rot away, and leaving the tree susceptible to disease, insect infestations, those kinds of things. So keep that mulch, do mulch, but keep it away from the tree trunk.
Give it a little breathing room around the trunk.
Exactly,
All right.
exactly.
Some fertilizers contain phosphorus.
Yes.
Tell us what your thoughts are on phosphorus.
Phosphorus is a very essential nutrient for plant growth and plant health. However, in Illinois, we tend to have, especially in the Chicago area, we tend to have enough of it. So when the soil has enough of it, when plants have enough of it, it tends to not be taken up. And so we have excess of it, and it ends up going into groundwater. And people have heard about the big algae bloom at the mouth of the Mississippi. That's from excess phosphorus. And it really does, what we do on a small scale really does affect things on a larger scale. So do a simple soil test to see if you need those nutrients before you just put them in. Again, with the more is better. Not always. More phosphorus, if you can put fertilizers on, but try and avoid the extra phosphorus.
What kind of soil test? Because, you know, I've never done that. What exactly is it?
Simple $5 kit from the garden center or hardware store. Dip the soil in, shake it up, and it tells you it turns a color, and however, you know, you match the color to the thing, and that's your levels.
And so what do you do with that information then?
All the soil test kits have like very simple, interpretive, you know, how much is too much, how much is just right, how much is not enough.
All right. Well, you know, composting, when you've been on before, composting, you know, you're a big proponent of that. Tell us what you brought in today that can help us understand how we might compost.
Great. Well, on Earth Day, too, a lot of people think if they throw organic matter into the garbage can and it goes to the landfill, that's okay because it'll just decompose like it would, like if you put it in a compost pile.
One would think.
It actually doesn't, because there's not the same kind of air, there's not the same kind of circulation, there's not the kind of microbes that are needed to break the things down. So they actually, even this organic matter will sit there for a lot longer than it would if you, say, just dug a hole and put it in your backyard.
All right, so tell us what you brought in and how it works in terms of composting this stuff.
So these are all ingredients that I used today in my kitchen that would have ended up in the landfill had I not.
Why didn't you finish that pear?
That was my kid.
Okay, fine.
I'll blame it on that kid. These are things that can be put into a compost bin, a regular compost bin, a tumbler, a 3-bin system, one of those plastic towers. Any of those would take these types of ingredients. Pear. Even people don't know that a lot of paper that's not dyed can go into the compost pile, leaves, twigs. The one thing you want to stay away from is twigs that are kind of, you know, 2 fingers. They're going to stay in your compost pile for years and years and not really decompose.
Let's talk about worms, because you brought some in.
I did.
I know you have a thing about them.
I do. So we can make a very easy composting system inside your house. If you go to the bait shop. I just went to the bait shop today, and I got some worms. Now, these are earthworms, night crawlers. These are not the worms you're looking for. So don't go out and, you know, dig up some earthworms and think you're going to have this amazing. They need soil to live. These guys are the ones you want. These are red wigglers. So you can see they're little.
Red wigglers.
Yeah, they're red and they're skinnier, and they can live in paper. So all you need is like a 5-gallon bucket. You can take paper. You rip it up like this, newspaper. So it's also a great way to get rid of your excess newspaper.
But you do this indoors. This is not an outdoor kind of thing.
You can keep it outdoors, but I keep mine indoors under my sink. And then
does it smell?
It does not smell, because the worm castings actually act as a natural deodorant. So as long as you're not giving the worms too much food so they're not eating it fast enough, and you're burying it in paper and keeping things moist and keeping the ecosystem going in here, you can be the worms will be very happy. The other thing is I don't have it in this bucket, but you need to put drainage, because the worms don't want to go swimming like we've been doing for the past week.
Eliza Fournier, thank you so much. Appreciate it as always. Happy gardening.
Thanks.